This episode sponsored by Lake Monster Details, producing the Don's Light and Magic Legacy line of parts, offering upgrade parts and decals for accuracy, special effects, and lighting. Visit www.lakemonsterdetails.com and make it glow.
Hey guys, Will here. Welcome back to Modeling from the Ensign's Chair. This is episode 5 of the 1350 NX-01 Enterprise build, and still working on the nacelles. So this episode we're going to kind of deal with those a little more, and I'm going to show you what I've done with them so far. Hopefully by the end of this episode we'll be at the point where we've got our pylons worked out, and hopefully getting close to mounting them onto the I'm calling the impulse deck. I don't know what the official term is for that, but so I've got a couple of things I want to take a look at first. So give me a minute, put you on the table, we'll get to work. Alright guys, so here we are. Let's take a look at what we got this week. I decided to go ahead and first of all I ordered some more of the warm white LED strip tape. So that came in this week, so I've got that. I'm good to go. I actually did I think 6 feet of it this time. So it should be more than enough to finish this build. And then I also ordered a couple things from Shapeways that came in this week. But not using them on this build, but probably on a future build. I've actually, I've enjoyed this build so much I actually went and bought a couple more of these models. I actually have 3 of them now. I bought 2 of them, and then I bought, just got this one in yesterday. And the great thing about it is it's still in the plastic wrap. Still even got the price tag on it, $44.99. And this one, the interesting thing about this one is it's, probably can't make it out on camera. I can even get the piece to come out. But, you have to take my word for it. This one is actually one of the ones molded in gray instead of white. So my understanding is that that makes that one of the first issues to be put out. With the gray molding, so, or the gray casting. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I was able to pick that up for a pretty fair price, and don't know if I'm gonna build it or just keep it in my stash for a while, but we'll see. But anyway, for those future builds I ordered some Shapeways parts I want to try later on, and George recommended to me that I pick up the NX-01 bridge. He's also got a build going on right now with an NX-01, and so I picked this up from Shapeways, and let's see if we can get this thing out of here. And it's got some really nice detail to it. Pull this light over here, maybe you can make it out. So if the camera's focusing properly, it looks like it is. It's got some really nice detail to it, so I'll be looking forward to working on that and hopefully including that in a future build. And then, so we got that. And these are all Shapeways, as I said. I don't remember which model supplier, but basically you just go on Shapeways and do a search for 1350 NX, and it'll bring up all these parts. So I got that part, and also picked up the shuttle bay for the 1350 NX, so we got that there. A little bit of detail to it. Looks pretty good. It should come out pretty nice on a build, but I'll have time to work on that before I include that in a build. Take a look at lighting that up and doing some light blocking on it and seeing what we can do with that. And the last thing, the other thing I ordered was the 1350 shuttles. But I can tell you, you see I got one loose here already. It's kind of a rough finish to these, but the issue I'm having with these is that they don't fit. They don't fit in the 1350 shuttle bay. So I may have to do some more research on that and see if somebody makes a 1350 that'll actually fit the shuttle bay, because this one doesn't. So Like I said, not using them on this build because I need a little bit of time to work out how I'm going to incorporate these. But I've got them here, and hopefully get to use them in the future. So, but those are all in Shapeways. If you're interested in them, just take a look on Shapeways and pick those up. But anyway, so on to the build. Made quite a bit of progress. I've got one of these nacelles already sealed up. I went through how I wired these up last video. And I went ahead and got this one finished up and sealed up. And a little disappointed in the seams on this. When I first looked at it, I thought, man, it looks like this thing should go together pretty well and should have minimal seam work. But yeah, no, not so much. It's got some pretty bad gaps in the seam once you get this thing together. I've got a pretty wide gap back here on the underside, and it's kind of hard to get this to even out with the left side to the right side. So I'm gonna have quite a bit of puttying and seam work to do on this, and I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do that with these ribbed parts back here, and then on the top, without removing that detail. So that's going to take a little bit of work, but it's not too bad. But there is quite a bit of seam work I'm going to have to do on this, and a bit more than I was hoping I would have to. So I'll have to work on that some. But let's plug this in and take a look at it again, since I've got it sealed up. And there we go. I'll cut this light off. And if you can make it out on the camera, I don't know, the light's probably washing it out, but I did paint in between those ribs there to get that little separation in between these prisms on here. And same thing on this side, and I think you can see it a bit better on this side. You can see where I did those ribs there. So looks pretty good, turned out very well. I've done both sides of it. As you can see, I've just kind of placed this one part on here, and you can see it's kind of cut down that light a little bit. It's not so over intense. So I've got that part just temporarily in place, and same thing with this part on the underside. I've got that in place. You can see if you look at it directly, though, it's pretty bright still. So I'm gonna see if I can figure out a way to cut that down. I might try putting a little bit of just a little dab of white paint on the tip of that to kind of cut it down some. It shouldn't be that bright, but we'll see. I'll figure something out with it. And there's our bustard effect, looking good as well. So that one is all wired up. Well, I'm gonna have to disconnect the wires to run it, but that one's all set up and wired up on the inside, and it's complete and assembled. I just got to do a lot of work on the seams, like I said. And so the way I did that, though, if you're wondering how I got these ribs in here, was I took the clear part, and like I said, I painted it blue with my Tamiya clear blue. And basically I had some Tamiya masking tape here, and I don't remember the size of this, but maybe you can get an idea of how large this is. But basically I've had this stuff for probably 2 or 3 years now and just never really used it. But it came in pretty handy here. All I did was take this and I'd cut a strip off, and I would just space them out on here, and that would give me and then come out here and just paint it black, do some black primer on it, and that would give me my ribs on the part. So when you look at it, you know, and like I said, the light's kind of washing it out, so you really can't make it out on this camera, but that gives me my ribs on there. So those are all in place. I painted both sides. This one's painted as well, so that one's ready to go too. And I'll get these put together and do a light test on it. And once I get these together, we'll come back and take a look at it. I'll get both of these hooked up. We'll get both the nacelles with the busters running together, and we'll take a look at them side by side. But one other thing I want to talk about, though, before I do that is I've been working on the pylons, how to do the wiring on these, because the next step from this is going to be to get this wiring to obviously get this wiring to run down these pylons. So what I did was I went ahead and I put the one part here that connects to the nacelle on, and I will warn you that there's these tabs on this part. I got one out of the box, just one of my other builds, just to show you. But you got these little tabs on this part, these things break really easy. On one side I broke one tab off and the other one stayed on. On the other side, both of these tabs broke off. So it's really easy to break those tabs when you're putting this together, because when you put this on, you've got these little notches that these have to slide into on this piece, and when you're putting pressure on it to make them slide in, these just snapped off before they even got fully seated. So keep in mind when you're doing this part that those may break off when you're doing it, and if they do, it's not too hard to line this up properly still, because you've got kind of a little cutout on the inside here to line it up with. So there's a little bit of an indentation here for this piece to go into. So I've got it in there, and I used plenty of super glue on this, and I think it's good to go. Doesn't feel like there's any flex to it or that. So I think we'll be good on both those parts. And like I said, the next thing is going to be on this one. I've already cut a notch at the top, and down here at the bottom I've also narrowed it a little bit, and then that way once we get around to putting this part on, as you can see, I've cut a notch in that other piece too, so I've got a should be plenty big enough hole there for the wiring to fit through coming out from the nacelle. And this end here, I've kind of thinned it out a bit to help that wire come out. So I think we should be good on that end as well. So I have to do that to the other pylon. And once I get these nacelles wrapped up, I should have these ready so we can just jump right into this and get these the pylons on the nacelles. And be ready to move on to the next step, which will be mounting these to the impulse deck. So anyway, but I'm going to finish up this nacelle. I'm going to get these wired up so we can see these nacelles lit up side by side, and we'll come back and take a look at that. So give me a little bit and we'll be back. Alright guys, so we got the warp nacelles all sealed up. Still got a lot of, and I'm holding this by hand to make this a little easier to show everybody. I don't want to have to move around because I've got all these wires still exposed here. So you can see still got a bit of seam work I'm going to have to do on this. There's a pretty good gap in some spots. This one's not as bad, but still going to take a bit of work. This side and the underside as well. But you can see it's coming together. It's looking pretty good. Let me turn this light out. Let's see what we got. You can see how the bustards are lighting up real nice. I've got stuck those pieces of cotton in there, and it's dispersing the light and giving it a nice effect. So, and then we've got you see on the sides where I've done that painting on the inside to kind of give a little division in those cells there. And it looks pretty good. We've got our navs and our strobes flashing in the back. Still got some light blocking to do on those. You can see a bit of a light leak here. But that'll be filled in once I start doing the seam work on it. And looks like I got a little more light blocking to do. Whew, that's bright. Back here at the strobes. So, but all in all, I'd say it's coming along pretty well. So next step's going to be I'll put this camera down, turn it off for a bit, and do a little more work. I'm going to start looking at attaching these plates I talked about for the nacelle pylons, and we'll get those attached and figure out how to run this wiring through here, and we'll get that together, and then we'll be one step closer to being done. Once we get those pylons on, we can start looking at attaching them to the impulse deck here, as I'm calling it, and start getting that together. And then once we got that together, we'll be ready to attach it to the saucer, and we're getting pretty close. So give me a little bit. I'm going to do some more work on that, and we'll come back and see what we got. Alright guys, so working on the seams on these nacelles. it's a real pain in the butt. I've tried to, I think I've kind of come up with a way that might make it a little bit easier. I'm not going to be able to tell you this episode whether or not it succeeds, but it's going to take me a little bit to work out. But you can see on the bottom here where I puttied, and that's just going to be a mess to clean up. So especially back here where you've got these fins or whatever these are back here, these ridges on the back of the nacelle. Well, what I decided to try to do was, I remember Boyd, when he did his most recent TOS Enterprise build, talked about taking perfect plastic putty, which I'm almost out of, and diluting it in some water. And basically you can get kind of a slosh out of it, a little bit of a paste. I think he called it a slurry. But basically what I decided to do was try that and just use that to kind of fill in the gap as much as possible. And basically what that should let me do is come back with a clean brush and some water and hopefully remove as much of this as possible without damaging the panels that you have on the top here. So far it's working out pretty well. It's filling in the seams. You have to do a couple coats with it because with the water it's going to shrink a little bit. And what I'll do is let that dry up some, and I'll come back with another layer of it, and we'll get that filled in. But basically what I did was I took the plastic putty, the perfect plastic putty, and I mixed it up in a cup with a little bit of clean filtered water. And all I'm doing is coming along and just dropping it in there and just kind of spreading it out and letting it flow in there. Now I should say that before I started doing this, I filled in the seam as much as possible with super glue, with CA glue, so that this wouldn't just flow through and end up all over the inside of the nacelle. Because you do want it kind of thin to where it'll flow into there. And you can see, hopefully you can see, I'll pull this light over here. Oops. But that's kind of washing it out a little bit now. Silver paint, but you can see it running a little bit there. But the great thing about it is it's water soluble, so I can just come in with a napkin, and if there's a little bit left over, I'll come in with a wet brush later and clean that up some. But so far it seems to be working out pretty well. I think it's going to help as far as not having to do so much sanding and end up destroying a lot of the details that are on here. But like I said, it will shrink a little bit after you do the initial fill on it. So you'll have to come back with a couple coats of it to get it to fill in and get it to level out. But so far it seems to be working out pretty well to fill in that gap. And like I said, I should be able to hopefully come back. Just dab a little more in here. But I should be able to come back with a wet brush and try to remove as much of this as possible. And the great thing about this stuff too is you can dab it around your these details back here and just let it flow around, and it'll nicely fill that in without having to do, better than if you came in with a solid piece of putty and just tried to cram it in there, and then you got to try to file and sand around all that stuff. But so far it seems to be working out pretty well. Got a couple little spots where it's a little stubborn, but you can just dab a little bit off your brush here and just come back in. You can remove some of this excess with a dry brush. And if you get some on the details, you just come with your brush and kind of help remove it off of there. Like I said, with these fins, or these ridged areas in the back, it's really going to help, I think, not destroy those. If I could come in and with a wet brush and remove some of this instead of a sandpaper, and that way it's not going to destroy those details on there. But it's still going to take quite a bit of work to get these seams decent. So I think we're going to wrap this episode up for this week, and hopefully next episode I've got this done and we're ready to move on to the next stage, which will be attaching these to the pylons, which, like I showed yesterday, I've already got this drilled out, cleared out. So, and I did do a test fit, and they do fit on there, and the wires fit through. So, but I think we'll stop here for this episode. We'll come back and I'll show you how this worked or didn't work. We'll see. But so far it looks promising. to be able to do it this way and not have to do so much sanding. Come back hopefully with a little bit of a finer grit sandpaper, like 1,000, or I think I've got some 600 down there, and just do some fine sanding and not have to worry about removing so much of those details. So but anyway, hopefully you guys are finding some of this useful. As always, please hit that subscribe button below if you like what you see. If you don't want to subscribe, you don't have to, but please at least hit that like button down below. Let me know how I'm doing, and feedback's always appreciated. So thank you guys for watching, thank you guys for subscribing, and until next time, keep modeling.